because we got 100 people ready to get the goods this morning. So I am proud to introduce Dylan Lewis as our featured speaker today. He's our pilot sales manager in the Georgia Division, has led our organization to having its best year and best campaigns each of the last several campaigns, and we're off to our best start year and summer to date that we've ever had. And the topic today is how to have a ridiculous average order. I know a lot of people were hearing some of Dylan's thoughts and messages at our SC1 kickoff meeting. We're like, dude, we need this. We need more time for this, and we need the goods because it's fantastic material. So we've got a handout for you. He's ready to rock. But to tell you a little bit about Dylan has had $1,000 average order for each of the last 5 pushes that he's been a part of. So, I mean, you just think about that for a second. I mean, I know we're getting a lot of orders so far to kick off the push. I know sales report has been incredible in both the Coastal and Georgia divisions. We're seeing the best sales reports we've ever seen as an organization, especially this early in the summer. And we're just now starting to teach you stuff, which is kind of cool. I can't wait to see what's going to happen these next several days after you get both today's message and Ben's message tomorrow on cookware and flatware. I bet we experience a 10 to 15% increase in average order after these next 2 workshops. So I'm fired up about it. Hope you guys are as well. I don't want to take too much time away from it because I know we only have about 30 minutes this morning before we could start the phone jam. So as a reminder, here's what needs to happen in the morning. You got yourself up. You got yourself motivated. Looks like Erica might be eating pizza. I hope that's not pizza, Erica. Oh, okay, good. I was a little worried there for you. About the time Dylan gets through his 5th tip, you'll be crashing. But that is not pizza. Okay, excellent.
Hold on. Let's check that out. Let's see what that is. That looks like a bagel with some that is a lot of jelly. You like some jelly, huh? It's a lot of jelly.
So basically, it's a pizza. All right. So that's good. It's good to see. So
Erica got the spotlight this morning for the best looking bagel.
Did she use the spatula spreader? I hope so.
Did she use? That is the key.
Dude, you could use the you could use the barbecue spatula with the size of that thing.
Yeah, she could.
All right. Well, let's make sure you give some push-ups or some jumping jacks, Erica, because otherwise you're going to be crashing about mid-phone jam. All those carbs and sugar. All right. Well, guys, let's do this. Let's do a quick journal entry. We let people get on. We got Nick Huang coming on into the room. So here he is. We got a couple other people showing up a few minutes late. Here's the thing, guys. You show up late during SC2, and you got to Venmo your manager. You know, so we disperse the winnings amongst the people that were actually on time. But you don't want to be late. Okay, don't be late. It's too important. All right, Erica. Yeah, let's lick that jelly off. Boom. You're ready to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab out a pen. We're gonna do a quick journal entry. You can type it in if you want, and then Dylan is ready to rock. So, so let's go with here is the entry for today. Okay, so here is the demo or journal entry for the day. We got a Lexi Richards spotting in the house. We got a Miranda spotting in the house. Welcome, welcome. We got a Braden in the house. So here's the journal entry. Okay, make sure you do this, guys, because it's going to set your mind right. So first thing you want to do, what were wins and losses for yesterday? Always start with a little bit of reflection. What were wins and losses for yesterday? Okay. What are the big 3 focuses for today? What needs to get done today in order for you to mark today as a win? And I really want you to take it as a personal challenge. Now that we've gotten past Memorial Day weekend, we've gotten past that initial barrier to booking up appointments. Now that we're into the mix of the real summer, let's live by that rule of 8. Okay, so make that one of your big 3 focuses really every day moving forward for the rest of the push. Demos completed plus appointments booked up should equal Okay, that should equal 8 or more. And if it's equaling 8 or more, you're going to have an effective day. You're going to be able to mark the day as a win. Okay, so what are the big 3 focuses of the day? and then the last thing I want you to do is, what are 5 things you're grateful for? All right, and some of you guys are already done with that. So so let's do one little more bonus one. I think this is a fun one. So the bonus entry for today is, what is your spirit animal? So who is your spirit animal this morning? All right. Who is your spirit animal this morning? All right. It could be a celebrity, it could be a superhero character, it could be a musician. Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Who is your spirit animal for today? Who are you gonna exude today? Iron Man, love it. Batman, okay, I hear you. Artemis, interesting. Black Panther, I hear you. Kirby Smart is your spirit animal. All right. Doesn't win the big one, but do that. Ben Jackson, a dragon. Oh, he took mine. Michael B. Jordan, Derek Jeter. Yeah, Jeets. All right. Who is going to be your spirit animal? Who are you going to embody today? All right. All right. Well, Dylan, the floor is yours. I know you're about to deliver the goods and bring the heat for today's instructions. So the topic is how to have a massive average order. How do you go out and prime yourself during your presentation to average $1,000 per appointment? Dylan, you out there, big dog?
Yep.
All right. So let's bring the heat. I'm going to send, do you going to screen share your tips, or how are you going to do it? You got it?
I don't care. Either we can screen share it, or I can send it out after I'm done. So.
All right. Well, let's crush it, and then we'll send it.
All right. Sounds good, because I want to make sure everyone's still taking notes. So, all right, guys. Well, anyway, time to get started. So my tips today are my top 10 tips as far as having an average order. And, some of it's mentality, some of it is just how I phrase certain things, and some of it is just some lines I put into my presentation. So it's a little bit of all of it, and I'm gonna make sure your managers get my handout to you as soon as I'm done. But you wanna make sure you're still taking notes to help you kind of retain the information, rather than just, assuming like, oh, I'm gonna get a handout, so what's the point? Because I wanna make sure you're able to implement some of these things into your presentation rather than just hear me talk. So my first tip is to love the one you're with. Like that old song. And the point is to love the one you're with, and love the customer you're with. Give them the best demo you can. Like, that was my main goal when I did every time I do a presentation. You want to make sure that you're giving that customer the best presentation you've ever given. Like, that's the whole mentality every single time. Like, it doesn't matter where they live or whatever the stigma is before you meet them, or if the customer had said something about them beforehand. Can't tell you how many times I've had customers be like, yeah, I'll put this person down, but I'm not sure if they're going to buy. And then they still bought big because I went in there trying to give them the best presentation I can. Like, it doesn't matter what their house looks like or whatever. I barely, like some people Zillow houses, and I barely do that just because I don't want to have a pre-existing expectation before I do the demo. So, the first thing, like I said, is to give each customer the best demo you can. Love the one you're with. And you shouldn't worry about rushing to the next appointment. Like, you may have a big day stacked up, but it's okay if I'm a little bit late to the next demo, because I don't want to sell the previous customer short, because you never know how it's going to go. Like, you don't want to assume that the next presentation is going to be better. So like, let me just ship this one in. Like, you want to give this one the best one possible, because that one might be a great demo. Like, yeah, you never want to hold back on the presentation. So number 2 is to know your customer. So you want to get to know at least 3 interesting facts about them before you start your presentation. So I know these things don't sound like it's going to, give you something crazy to have a massive average order for those first two. But I mean, the point of it is you got to have the right feeling going into the presentation in order to sell big. Like you got to have the right mentality for it, and you got to get to know your customer. Like it's not just getting to know them, but you want to feel like you know them by the time you start your presentation. So you want to know some interesting facts about them, like what they do for a living, but not just what they do for a living, but how they got into it. Like I like to ask them, it's like, oh, what do you and your husband do for a living? And it's like, oh, what got you into that? And then they'll really start talking a lot about like when they were young and then they, met someone and they got them into this job position or whatever. I'm like, they might just tell you this elaborate story. And that's kind of what you want. You want them to really open up to you. And then next is how many kids they have and like what they want to do when they grow up. And those are always funny stories. And then I also like to talk about how they met as a couple. Like, it's like, oh yeah, so how'd you guys meet? And then that's typically some elaborate story as well. And that really helps you get that connection that, you're looking for. And there's times where I want to start my presentation, but then I stop myself. I'm like, wait, no, I don't feel like I know them well enough yet. So I keep building rapport. So you kind of have to like hold off on it because you might want to, unless they're like, hey, so what was it you want to show me? And then they're just trying to kind of rush you to it. And when that happens, that's what I'm kind of looking for. Someone to be like, forget why we were talking and then be like, oh yeah, so what was it you want to show me again? And then I go into my tip number 3. So this is my opening value phrase that I say when I start my presentation to right off the bat, start building that value and that expectation that it's not going to be cheap, but cheap stuff isn't good. So my phrase is, oh yeah, so I'm here to show you Cutco, which is the world's finest cutlery. And as you do know, the finer things in life do tend to cost more, but I'm here to show you why. And I always like to throw a smile at the end. So that's what I like to say is I'm here to show you Cutco, which is the world's finest cutlery. And as you do know, the finer things in life do tend to cost more, but I'm here to show you why. And then number 4, my 4th tip is become the kitchen consultant. So right here is kind of the moment where they realize that they're in a presentation and you kind of consult with them about it. It's not just the fact that you're some high school or college kid that is just running through these steps and they have to sit there and listen to it. Like this is when you kind of get a feel for them and they realize what kind of cook they are and you're kind of diagnosing them for as far as like what kind of cook they are. And I ask these main questions right when I get to the point of, do you cook because you have to, like to, or love to? So I have that as one of the bullet points on my handout, just so you know exactly when you start implementing these questions. So I know you all have that part at least, but then this next part is basically what I start adding behind it. So the first question is, or after that, you want to make sure you write all these down too, by the way. But the first thing is, how many nights a week do you cook? So how many nights a week do you cook, Ms. Jones? And then I write this down. And when I hear 1 to 2, I'm thinking homemaker set. When I'm thinking 3 to 4, I'm thinking signature set. And 5 to 7, I'm thinking ultimate set or complete set, because that's what I like to call it. But as far as I know, you think 1 or 2 is just like, oh, that's so little. But the average American cooks 2 nights a week, about 1 to 2 nights a week. And the homemaker was designed back in 1949 for your basic household needs. So, for the average American pretty much. And it's normally 2 nights of cooking, 2 nights of leftovers, 2 nights of eating out, and then 1 night of ordering in like takeout or pizza or something like that. But anyway, the point is that when I hear 1 to 2, I'm like, oh, okay, that's about average. And they're like, really? Because a customer, that's one of the customers who they're like thinking you're just going to be walking through this presentation with you, just going, it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to walk through these steps and just to help this kid out. I'm not that much of a cook is what they're thinking. So when you say when they say like 1 or 2, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's about average. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I hear more than 2. If they're like, yeah, like 3 or 4, I'm like, oh, wow, that's above average. Normally it's like 1 or 2. And they're like, oh, really? Like then they start realizing how much more of a cook they are. Like I said, you're kind of diagnosing them at this point. So then they kind of get more engaged with it. They're like, oh, I guess this is more for me than I thought. And then the next step is, or the next question rather is, how much would you spend if you were to eat out as a family? And you want to write that number down, because that number is really important. You want to write all these down, actually, guys. You want to make sure you keep note of everything on this. But that one especially, because you're going to be able to use that in the close. And if some of you guys were for my talk back last Tuesday, then you'd understand why. And I'm going to get to that here in a minute. But if you were, and then the next question is, if you were entertaining, how many place settings would you normally have? 8, 10, 12, 24, or like 40 or 50? So, I mean, you guys can probably make the assumption as to why I asked those questions. 8, I'm thinking homemaker because the table knives. 10, I'm thinking signature. 12, I'm thinking complete set. 24, I'm thinking 2 flatware chests. And like 40 or 50, keep just going from there as far as like flatware or table knives or whatever they may be trying to get. So again, I'm trying to diagnose them and kind of think about what set is best for them. So if they're like, oh yeah, I normally sit 12 people, or they're like, oh, I have like crazy parties here, or I have like tons of people, or all the family comes over, like you're going to kind of get to know that. So you can be like, oh, well, Miss Jones, I know you want to get 1 flatware chest, but you normally have like 24, 25 people here for Christmas, right? You don't have to pick who gets the good stuff. She's like, oh yeah, true. I mean, like Andrew Smith, actually, I remember him doing that exact thing with a customer, and then they got 2 chests right there just because you use logic with them. Because, I mean, if you didn't ask that question, you wouldn't know, and then you wouldn't be able to use that logic. The next thing is, if you were to design the perfect knife set, what kind of qualities would you want your knives to have? And always number 1 is like, oh, I want them to stay sharp. I'm like, okay, stay sharp. And then you want to write these down, and you want to kind of coax them to certain questions if they don't really know what to say. Like, you can just kind of ask them like, oh, well, would you like it to be comfortable? Like, yeah. Okay. And would you want it to be dishwasher safe? Do you ever put your knives in the dishwasher, Miss Jones? And then they're like, oh yeah, all the time. But I know you're not supposed to. I'm like, yeah, typically not, because it can, warp the blade or crack the handle or something. Or, I mean, but I love it when customers are like, oh, no, you're never supposed to put your knives in the dishwasher. And you're like, yeah, I know, right? But wouldn't you want to, just for convenience, or just in case someone did? And they're like, oh, yeah, that'd be nice. I'm like, okay, dishwasher's safe. And would you want your knives to have any guarantees? If you're spending a lot of money on them, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, guarantees would be nice. I'm like, okay, guaranteed. And then I also love it when they're like, oh, like a lifetime guarantee? Who's lifetime? Those things are bogus. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? And then I go into it as far as how I'll go into the guarantees in a little bit. But anyway, that's tip number 4, become the kitchen consultant. Number 5 is how to create massive credibility. And these are some money lines that I say during the presentation to help create that massive credibility. And some of them I've learned from other CSPs and stuff. And I've learned this first line from Lauren Horton. I learned it at my first SC1 meeting ever. So basically how it goes is, when I'm getting into about the product, Cutco's been around since 1949. We've all been made in the USA. And one thing that Cutco really does is we take modern technology and old school craftsmanship and put them together to make something truly unique. And I do that hand motion every time. Because I really like to talk with my hands, and I feel like it helps bring, energy to the presentation. So it's important to kind of talk with your hands during it, but I like to so what Cutco does is we take modern technology and old school craftsmanship and put them together to make something truly unique. And then I like to say, when you're going through the different things about Cutco, we've been involved in, all these different things, been on, Modern Marvels, Made in America. I'm talking about all that stuff. And then the White House chefs actually use Cutco. And during the Cold War, President Reagan actually gave the leader of Russia, which is Gorbachev, actually gave him a Cutco knife set to demonstrate American ingenuity. And also Gorbachev ended the Cold War, and I'd like to think Cutco had something to do with it. And Miss Jones always laughs every single time. Like, they love that part. And also one fun fact is that we actually don't make serrated knives. It's a big misconception, is that we make serrated knives, because we don't. And we make our double D edge. And I'll go into the double D edge later, but just so you know, the double D edge was actually licensed for eye surgeries at one point because it's so sharp. So, again, these are things that are helping build that credibility as far as facts about the history of Cutco and, why we're the best. All right. So that's my 5th tip as far as creating massive credibility during the company history. And number 6 is to help identify a need. So this is a phrase that you're going to use a lot during the presentation, just to help make sure that the customer is not, again, to make them feel like they're more of a cook than they thought. So the first thing is, or the phrase I use for every one of these questions is, do you maybe sometimes ever? And you sometimes maybe ever make sandwiches? You sometimes maybe ever chop vegetables, grill out, bake? These are things that you can say during the presentation. And, it's not like, oh, do you bake all the time? It's like, oh, no. I don't bake all the time. But it's like, do you maybe sometimes ever bake a cake? And it's like, oh, maybe for my kid's birthday, yeah. Or it's like, you maybe sometimes ever grill out. And it's like, oh, well, if I'm, 4th of July or something like that. Do you maybe sometimes ever cut up watermelon in the summer? You ever cut up potatoes? If you ask that question, it's good for that cheese knife. I think is sweet on potatoes. Do you ever cut lemons and limes? You ever cook a casserole? These things are basically designed to help you get yes questions, or help them say yes between 5 and 7 times, like at least that many. Like that's my goal, is to help identify that need, because they're like, actually, yeah, I do cook these things. So, and also all these things that, I have given you some bullet points to look at on the handout, but make sandwiches, I'm thinking spatula spreader. Chop veggies, I'm thinking any chef knife. Grill out, I'm thinking barbecue tools and butcher knife or Hardy slicer or something like that. Bake, I'm thinking spatula spreader or bake and serve set. Watermelon, butcher knife. Potatoes, cheese knife. Lemons and limes, paring knife or trimmer. Casserole, that's the kitchen tools, stuff like that. So basically what I'm doing is kind of setting it up for certain things I could bring up, or just really tying them into the pieces in the set. Like, yeah, all these pieces are perfect for what you do, Ms. Jones. So that helps identify that need, to be like, oh yeah, I really do use that stuff. So they realize that they need it more than they thought. All right, so tip number 7, help you build massive value. So I use this phrase. This is basically when I get to closer to the end, and it's to help you build that value. And it's right before I get into the guarantees. So I like to say it costs more, but it's worth it because. So again, I'm trying to make them think that this knife set is going to be like 10 freaking grand. Like that's the whole concept during this part. So I want them to think that they're about to drop like 10 G's on this Cutco, and they want to do it. Like that's the whole concept. So it costs more, but it's worth it because. So I started off by saying, Ms. Jones, I'm going to tell you the 5 things that make Cutco the Rolls Royce of cutlery. So number 1 is the universal wedge lock handle. So it was designed by Thomas Lamb, who tested over 700 pairs of hands before he decided that this design we have can fit in anyone's hand, left or right-handed, no matter the size. So he actually designed Porsche steering wheels, polio crutches, and airplane joysticks. And he devoted his life to find the perfect fit for hands. We actually spent over $1 million on this handle design. And it costs more, but it's worth it because it doesn't matter how you're going to hold it. Cutco, when you're holding a Cutco knife, you're going to hold it the right way every time. And number 2 is the thermo resin for the handles. And it's the same material as bowling balls, professional football helmets, and dishwasher racks. So it costs more to have that material, but it's worth it because, if it's the same material as dishwasher racks, what do you think? Yeah, it's dishwasher safe. Also, footballs and or football helmets and bowling balls, take a lot of, just a lot of damage, a lot of, just force happen to those things all the time. And obviously they stick together really well. So, it handles all the tough duties you might need to. And then number 3 is full tang nickel silver rivets. So it costs more to have full tang nickel silver rivets, but it's worth it because you have that metal go all the way through the handle. And also, we have high carbon stainless surgical steel. So it's the same steel that surgeons use, so it will stay sharp, it's rust resistant, and It has a great balance. So it costs more to have that high quality steel go all the way through the handle, but it's worth it because it'll have a better balance and it's very sturdy for the construction. So it'll take any force that you're trying to put down on it. And next is the double D edge. So it costs more to have that double D edge, but like I said, it's worth it because it's the same that we actually licensed it for eye surgeries at one point because it's so sharp. And we don't make serrated knives, Miss Jones. That's why we actually have 3 straight edges in between every tooth. Because, other knife brands like Hinkles, Wusthof, Shun, any of those are made for chefs, but Cutco understands that not everyone's a chef. So, it doesn't matter how you're trying to cut, it'll cut in any direction you want it to. So it costs more to have that edge, but it's worth it because it'll cut in any direction you want. And it's really the most ergonomic design in a blade. And then this next phrase I use, I put it on bullet point number 7, but it kind of leads into tip number 8. So how that works is if one of these knives, Miss Jones, was $500, what kind of guarantees would you want that knife to have? And they're like, oh, like a lifetime guarantee. Okay, Miss Jones, well, just so you know, lifetime guarantee, they took it to court and it only needs to last about 7 years, or whatever the company deems the lifetime of the product. So, but what Cutco has is not a lifetime guarantee. We actually have a forever guarantee. And let me show you how that works. And then I go through the guarantees, and that's step 8 is helping you eliminate the let me think about it. But I go through the guarantees, and I also let them know that we have basically that it's a forever guarantee. Doesn't matter who bought it, doesn't matter how long they had it, they don't need a receipt with it. As long as it's Cutco, it's guaranteed forever. And when I'm talking about it, when I go through each guarantee, and when I get to the 3-week trial, and just so you know, guys, I know it's 15 days, but it's 15 business days. They don't count the weekend, so it's really 3 weeks to try it out. So I say right when I get to the 3-week trial, I say I never have anyone tell me that they have to think about it because they actually have 3 weeks to try it out. So this time of year, it's really hard to get the husband and wife together. So all they have to do is put down a 1/5 payment. So just to try it out. Worst case scenario, they have the Rolls Royce of cutlery in their kitchen for 3 weeks and then they get all their money back. Best case scenario, they fall in love with it and use it the rest of their life. So it's really a win-win. And also, I want to give you my personal guarantee, Miss Jones, that, you're going to love your Cutco because my whole family has Cutco. My grandmother's had it for over 30 years. And, personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable showing something that I didn't personally believe in. And, whatever your story is, if you know someone with Cutco or, you've had your family members had Cutco for a long time or you just really like selling it, you can say any of those things. And then, by the way, do you have my number saved? Yeah, I just want to make sure you have my number saved in case you have any questions in the future. So I like to say that because it kind of helps tie them into you and you being their kitchen consultant. And I just have them say my name is Cutco, whatever your first name is, just so they can just type in Cutco and your name will pop up. And then number 9 is creating a buying mindset. So I say this phrase right when I get to the end and right when the video ends. So let's review on why so many people choose to invest in Cutco. You'll always have sharp American-made knives that are comfortable, safe, and sanitary. They're made out of the highest quality materials and backed by a forever guarantee. So it's one of the last knives you'll ever have to buy, or one of the last knife sets, excuse me. And, drop the word set as many times as you can. And lastly, we offer bun coverage. You know what bun coverage is? You're like, no, what is that? And it's buy once, use every day, never replace. So your buns are covered. And I put finger guns in there just so you guys know that's important. And but seriously, is the next step. So I say that, they laugh about it because you want to add a joke right in the end just to cut the tension and make them feel like, kind of let their walls down because they're expecting, the video's ending. They're expecting you to then, it's like, okay, here comes the close. And you kind of catch them off guard with a joke. And that's the point, to kind of create that buying mindset. So that's tip number 9 is creating buying mindset. But I make the joke and we laugh about it. And then I say, no, but seriously, Miss Jones, can you think of anything that you use in your house every single day and would never have to replace it? And I kind of pause there. And it's important to pause because you want to give them time to think about it. Like, it's a serious question. You want them to try and answer it. And then number 10 is to initiate the proper drop down. So personally, you know, or I mean, it should be anyone, honestly, is you want to start as high as possible for the drop down so you don't have to drop, so you have a lot less to drop down. So if you're going through the video and they show the essential set, I kind of downplay it a little bit because I'm like, Miss Jones, I'm talking about it. I'm like, Miss Jones, so that's the essential set. And, you know, it's more for people who are, you know, just getting married. It's a good wedding gift, or it's also good for, you know, just getting your kid when they go off to college, just so they have some knives to use in their dorm. So, and then they're like, okay, that's not really for me. That's what they're thinking. And, you know, so you don't want them to start at the essential because then you only have like the studio to drop down to, and you don't really have much to drop down. You only have a couple of steps there. So I want to start high so I have a lot more steps. So basically how I start off is I go through the presentation, they see the video, and then I'm like, so we do actually have, these are our 3 most popular sets, but we do actually have one bigger set. So do you want to see what the biggest one is? You know, just for fun. And I always, you know, you want to make sure you ask. That's important. You want to ask, and then they openly say, yeah, let's go ahead and see it. So, you know, it's really their decision. You're just framing it up the right way. So you don't want to be like, oh, I'm just going to show you the biggest one, okay? Like, because then it seems pushy. It seems like you're just trying to get the biggest one. But I say, do you want to see the biggest one? You know, just for fun. And then I smile, and that's important. And then I start off, and, you know, you show the complete set, and then you show them the price of that. And you want to make sure that you say it in the smallest way possible. I don't say the full price. And, you know, I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah. And then, you know, when you're dropping down, like I said, the Homemaker set, I'm not going to say the Homemaker set is $1,326, Miss Jones. What do you think of that? I mean, that sounds like, whoa. Like, that sounds like a massive number. But if I'm like, yeah, it's only $1,326. You know, it shows confidence, and it shows that you're like, yeah, that's not that big of a number. Like, and I mean, it might seem big to you, but you got to play it off as it's not, because, you know, they spend $1,000 on stuff all the time, like in one thing. So, I mean, people do that all the time. Like, people like replace their windows in their house, and their down payment is a couple grand. And so, but anyway, the point is, you want to make sure that, like, yeah, so you want to say the price the right way. But when I get down to the Homemaker, I'm going to show them the like, I would drop down. So I start with the complete set. Then we go to the signature if that doesn't work. Then we're at the Homemaker. And it's like, so you just had a way bigger drop down than picking one of the 3 and then having to drop down from there. They already said no 3 times at that point. So then it's easier to get them on the galley, because the galley is the answer to this next part. So they're like, yeah, no, about the Homemaker. I'm like, okay, well, is it too much money or too many knives? And then whichever the answer is, the galley is the answer. So it's like, yeah, it's just too much money. It's like, okay, well, the galley set is for people who love the Homemaker. It's just a little bit too much for their budget. All they did was take out the 2 knives people use the least. And, you know, it just makes it a little bit more cost effective for you. Or they take out 2 of the most expensive knives in the set. And, you know, so if it's too many knives, it's like, yeah, so they just took out the 2 knives customers use the least, the butcher and the carver. Or they took out the 2 most expensive knives in the set, the butcher or the carver. Either one. I mean, like, either way it goes, it's like, oh, so the galley is the perfect thing. It's under $1,000, you know, so it really helps them kind of understand, like, why the galley would be a good set. And also, guys, like I said in the beginning, you want to write down those numbers, because if they say the Homemaker set is too much, you know, if you take the price of the Homemaker, you divide that by 5, you get the monthly payment. Then you divide that by 4, that's the weekly payment. It's only about about like $70 a week. They probably spend about $80 if they eat out of a family of 4. And then it's like, yeah, so if you just eat in one more night a week, Miss Jones, it actually pays for itself. And then, you know, over the course of the year, you'll actually be saving money by the time you're done with it. So that's why it's important to ask that question in the beginning, because they're going to give you an honest answer. And then at the end, you can kind of use it as that logic we talked about. But again, don't say the full price. If you're going to say it shortened. Like, and even I don't say like, oh, it's only $123 or something like that. It's like, it's only $123 today, Miss Jones. Like, saying 100 is just like, oh wow. Like, yeah, it's only $123. They're like, oh, okay. You know, you're playing it off like it's not that big of a deal, and, you know, they're going to take it the same way. So don't say the full price, and write it out when you can. Like, using that whiteboard feature is money. Like, putting that down. It's like, yeah, so the price is only this much altogether and this much today. And I always like to circle the monthly. So I circle the monthly, so they're like, oh yeah, only that much. Okay, I can afford that today. But yeah, guys, so those are my top 10 tips. 1 is love the one you're with. 2 is to know your customer. 3 is that opening value phrase. 4 is becoming the kitchen consultant. 5 is creating massive credibility. 6 is identifying a need. 7 is building massive value. 8 is eliminating the let me think about it. 9 is creating a buying mindset. And 10 is to initiate the proper drop down. So that's what I got for you.
Dylan, thank you for sharing the goods, my friend. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Guys, I think it's important to make sure that you're showing up to your presentations the right way. I know some of you guys look like you just woke up. Not going to name anybody. But what I do want to do is show you this is how you should show up to every demo that you do, especially your first summer, right? So guys, I would show up to this for every demo. And they'll be like, what in the world? Like, Miss Jones, it's my graduation. I'm about to hit my next promotion. So I wanted to celebrate with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yep, just celebrate your next promotion and graduating from 10% to 15%. With the next customer, graduate from 15 to 20. Just celebrate every promotion as a graduation and show up this way, and you will crush your appointment. So
absolutely,
much better to show up that way than the way some of you guys are showed up with no camera, which leads me to believe I don't even know what you're rocking right now. So respect for those that were at least proud to rock the bedhead. So, well, guys, I do want to get the phone jam kicked off. I know there was a lot of takeaways from the meeting. It is 8:38. We got to protect our phone time. I'm going to start getting some vibes going with the music. You guys make sure we're making at least 20 calls this morning so you could set yourself up for success, right? You got yourself up. You got yourself ready. Let's bring it. I know people have been asking what kind of music we're going to go today. Are we going to zig? Are we going to zag? I don't know. I feel like we'll start with a little Collie Buddz and we'll see where it goes. So here we go.
One shot coming need it bad. Next shot for the week when me hard. 3 shots make me burn out me job. When me look for me check me feel like me get robbed. 4 shots
don't be hopping up. Don't be that person. Get your calls in.
6 shots make me almost forget, but the whole damn week me get a beating. Sometimes in my life I just wanna all the vibes and birds.